This is a day from hell. I haven't had this many things go wrong in one day in a long time. 17 millimeters on your banjo bolts for your cooler lines. $10mm 10mm linear sawn. You got 3 tubes here. They have little screens in the ends of them. And then this is an oiling tube. 10mm on your speed sensors. Your dipstick tube. 2 shift sawn. You have 2 pressure sensors. I guess go ahead and mark one of them and mark one of the shifts speed sensors. They are the same, you can interchange them, but I just mark them and put them back in the same spot. You have different style of pressure switches, you have different colors, and you also have stepped and non-stepped. This one here is stepped. So is this one up here. $10mm on your cover for your neutral switch. $10mm on the neutral switch. In fact, everything on the rear cover back here is 10s. $14s on the case bolts. Yep, they're all going to be a pain today. 10mm on your lockup solenoid. Alright, flip this up on its end. If you haven't done it already, my guys know to take the linkage off the front side. That needs to be taken off. It's not going to do it. There's 3 spots along here that you can tap up on this rear cover. Usually it comes right on up. Just everything is a pain today. Alright, come on. Gear that you don't want to bend them tubes, so be careful. Our stop for our park gear. 2 oiling tubes here. They're 5mm Allen heads that hold them in. $12mm on here. Pin, a washer, flat washer, and 2 cage bearings. And down underneath this gear, when we get this housing up, there's another washer. It's a tab right here you need to bend up to get your linkage off. $10mm. And put your linkage all the way over into low. Here's the ink stamp right there, and then there's the metal stamp right there. So, what we got here? 1 5/16. So this is right-handed threads. The other 2 are left. Now there are different ways of getting this off. This is the way I do it. You can do it however you want to. You do have to strike this straight on. Don't come in at the side, because you will screw the threads up. two heel bars are adjustable. Just get underneath the gear and I pry them up. Every once in a great while you will chip a tooth right here. It's not that big of a deal. You just take a Scotch-Brite pad on your deal and you just buff it off and get it smooth. You can chip a tooth on a gear. You can chip it till it's almost halfway up the tooth and it'll still work just fine and not make any noise. So pull this other one off same way. Alright. Now to do this other gear, I use an air hammer. If you have a shaft, depending on which Honda you got, is how it's going to be. Some of these shafts over here have that big of a hole. If they do, you can't use that. You're going to have to use that. Since we got the small hole, we can use this. And if it, usually it'll just come on up. If it don't want to come on up, just give it some persuasion. And I use these zip ties. Been using them for over 10 years now, the same set. I have had to get rid of a few. When they start wearing out, his tab will get kind of loose, and you can just, usually you can just bend it back up and it'll continue working for a while, but when it gets to where it won't no more, I just throw it away. And then the zip ties all together. Need a big pry bar, an even bigger pry bar. Get in right here. And right over here. Sometimes these dowel pins pretty rusted on. Sometimes it takes a bit of persuasion. Alright. Up over here. Pull this one up. Usually our reverse idler is going to fall out. That other washer I was talking about, it's got a lip on it. Sometimes there's tubes that stick up in here. Pull them back out and put them where they belong. And check your bearing surface here for your differential bearing and your center case bearings. This bearing here especially, where this flat bearing rides, this bearing is bad about chewing up, and it'll chew up that bearing back there. also chew up that gear. So we got another bolt here. It's got tabs bent over. $10mm. Pull this off. This usually is in fine shape, but do go ahead and check your bearing surfaces. I put it back just the way it was. You want to check your fork here. Very rarely, but I have seen these wear out. So when it wears out, you're going to want to replace your idler, your selector, and watch your teeth in here. If these start getting rounded, you're going to want to change the gears and your selector that faces down. Pay attention to these teeth right in here also. Very rare, but have seen them worn out. Zip tie all that together again and bring this out, and how do that so that it washes all inside. Here again, these are usually fine. Problem, it's right here on this bearing, on this surface right here. Got another cage bearing and that on the back. A pair of snap ring pliers. Underneath here are 2 half moon washers. I keep these separate and I put them over here with my solenoids. Don't want them flying away and getting lost. Got another flat bearing and washer, cage bearing and flat washer, or flat bearing, and our keeper. You want to pay attention to this stuff in here. I've never seen them bad, but you do want to look at it and make sure you don't have that 1 in a million. Usually this stuff's not bad either, so make sure it's not chipped. Like I said, right on these bearings right here, they start pitting, especially this one. Like this one's bad right there. So we're going to replace both of them, even though the other one's fine. When this one's bad, you better, in my opinion, better replace them both. So even though the race feels good, that bearing is bad. Do the drums here in a second. Go ahead and get the valve out. It's 10 millimeters all the way down except for the last 3, and they're 12s. like that, are you? Alright, the only place you really need to be real concerned about at this point while we're taking this apart is underneath it where the pump gears go. Everything about this training is wanting to be a pain. Usually all this stuff comes right on that. There you go. And you have dowel pins and separator plates between every layer. Here's our 312s. Bring our shaft up with it. There's a check valve right here. Usually it just falls out. And there's a spring. Now right in here, and now we're eat up. This pump part of the valve body is bad. I don't know if you can see that, but it's all eat up right there. So we're going to need a valve body, main valve body, and usually the gears are still okay. They look okay. So we'll just get the main part of the valve body. Usually the plate's okay. And usually they're okay until you start getting the bearings coming apart. And what it does, gets up in there and eats all that up. So on my drums, what I do is I just pick a side, it doesn't matter which side. Mark one side with an X. Be sure and mark that side of the drum with an X. Or whatever, have whatever mark you want to use. And usually there's a little groove cut down in these steels. I run them again. I haven't never had a problem. It does make the shift a little bit smoother if you go ahead and replace them, but it's not that noticeable. Keep the snap ring with the clutches that came out of. This drum here, I'll go ahead and put it all together because it can fit on one. The others I put each side on one of these zip ties because it's a little too long. And here again, pick a side, it don't matter which side. mark it so you know all that stuff goes to that side. Usually if the clutches or the stills are burnt up, it's going to be one of these two, usually. Some kits come with the balance pistons, some don't. These are still pretty good shape. If you want them, you better specify that you want them, because they don't always come with it. Alright, that's pretty much all there is to that. Get this written up, and then we shall return. Okay, so this is what we're doing. Got a B7XA LS kit filter. I've always put the Sonex in-plug kits in the valve bodies. I always put the Transgo Honda LK kit in there, and it comes with enough to do like 5 transmissions, something like that. So I actually have that here. Don't need to order it, but I'm going to go ahead and order an extra one. The main valve body, on the valve body it's got P7T and HTM-2. Usually those two things will get them what they need. The diff bearings and races, they're probably going to come back and ask me to measure the bearings. I'm not going to do it unless I just got to. And on the torque converter, I'll take you out there in a minute and let you see for the code. Usually there's an ink stamp or it's stamped into the body. This one happens to have both, and I'll show you where they're both at. And I guess that's it for this. Alright, I don't know why it didn't record the first time. You look right there, there's an ink stamp, 8C. And if you look right there, there's a metal stamp, F8C.